So, the Enchiridion by Epictetus. This is not going to be an audiobook, even though it kind of is. I'm going to read the Enchiridion. Link should be down in the description to the archive.org/details/Epictetus-the-Enchiridion. And that's quite it. And there you can read it for free, the whole book. And that's quite amazing. I don't know where to start, so I'm probably going to start with the first one, which apparently as well is quite, how should I say, quite a long one compared to all of the other ones, even though all of them are fitted on one page. Which means that it is a book of 54 pages, I think 59 with the table of contents. But yeah, anyway, there are things which are within our power, and there are things which are beyond our power. Within our power are opinion, aim, desire, aversion, and in one word, whatever affairs are our own. Beyond our power are body, property, reputation, office, and in one word, whatever are not properly our own affairs. Now the things within our power are by nature free, unrestricted, unhindered. But those beyond our power are weak, dependent, restricted, alien. Indeed alien. Remember, then, that if you attribute freedom to things by nature dependent and take what belongs to others for your own, you will be hindered, you will lament, and you will be disturbed. You will find fault both with God and man, but if you take for your own only that which is your own and view what belongs to others just as it really is, then no one will ever compel you, no one will restrict you, you will find fault with no one, you will accuse no one, you will do nothing against your will, no one will hurt you, you will not have an enemy, nor will you suffer any harm. Aiming therefore at such great things, remember that you must not allow yourself any inclination, however slight, toward the attainment of the others, but that you must entirely quit some of them, and for the present postpone the rest. But if you would have these, and possess power and wealth likewise, you may miss the latter in seeking the former, and you will certainly fail of that by which alone happiness and freedom are procured. Seek at once, therefore, to be able to say that every unpleasing, I think it is indeed unpleasing, semblance, and there's a quote, you are but a semblance, and by no means the real thing, and then examine it by those rules which you have, and first and chiefly by this, whether it concerns the things which are within our power, our own power, or those which are not. And if it concerns anything beyond our power, be prepared to say that it is nothing to you. Which I think is a good point. If something is out of your control, you don't have power over it, why should you be concerned about it? Why should you even think about it? Because you can't do anything about it anyway. It's not in your control. There's no way you can be doing something about it. And so wasting your time and energy and everything for it is really and utterly just a waste of time. But anyway, remember that desire demands the attainment of that of which you are desirous, and aversion demands the avoidance of that to which you are averse. That he who fails of the object of his desires is disappointed, and he who incurs the object of his aversion is wretched. If then you shun only those undesirable things which you can control, you will never incur anything which you shun. But if you shun sickness or death or poverty, you will run the risk of wretchedness, period. Remove, in brackets, the habit of aversion, then, from all things that are not within our power, and apply it to things undesirable, which are within our power. But for the present, altogether restrain desire, for if you desire any of the things not within our own power, you must necessarily be disappointed. What is going on there? And you're not yet secure of those which are within our power, and so are legitimate objects of desire. Where it is practically necessary for you to pursue or avoid anything, do even this with discretion and gentleness and moderation. The third chapter and also page. With regards to, can I actually zoom in? Is there actually an audiobook as well? Read this book aloud. Loading.
With regard to whatever objects either delight the mind or
Please
contribute to...
fucking stop. Shouldn't have done that one, I guess. Anyway. With regard to whatever objects either delight the mind or contribute to use or are tenderly beloved, remind yourself of what nature they are, beginning with the merest trifles or trifles. If you have a favorite cup, that it is but a cup of which you are fond of, for thus, if it is broken, you can bear it. If you embrace your child or your wife, that you embrace a mortal, and thus, if either of them dies, you can bear it. Well, this is difficult. I mean, comparing a cup to a loved one is strange. Just strange. But I mean, yes, if you're having a favorite cup, just remind yourself of the fact that probably as well that it might decay in its print or whatever the fuck it might be about. Like, it could just break. Period. As well as my computer could break. But it is just a computer. Even though there's a lot of fucking data on it that is really important. And I should probably back it up from time to time, which I'm not doing. But anyway, here we are. No, I do want to read the part again with the loved ones. For thus, if it is broken, you can bear it. If you embrace your child or your wife, that you embrace a mortal, and thus, if either of them dies, you can bear it. Well, don't fully get it, but maybe you do. The fourth. When you set about any action, remind yourself of what nature the action is. If you're going to bath, represent to yourself the incidents usual in the bath, some persons pouring out, others pushing in, others scolding, others pilfering, and thus you will more safely go about this action if you say to yourself, I will now go to bath and keep my own will in harmony with nature. And so with regards to every other action, for thus, if any impediment arises in bathing, you will be able to say, it was not only to bath that I desired, but to keep my will in harmony with nature, and I shall not keep it thus if I am out of humor of things that happen. What I'm seeing there, and it's actually from time to time quite difficult to read since it's very old spoken, preparing yourself for a certain moment. Something could happen, so if you think about it and if you prepare yourself for it, then you can do something about it. If you're not doing so, you can't. Added date. This book was actually added in 2020. But before I actually go ahead, I mean, there's so many versions of Epictetus and Enchiridion, translated by George Long. By whom is this one translated? Probably by nobody. So what if I go to page 1? Enchiridion Epictetus. Well, let's actually see what translated by somebody else. I see. Let's actually see what George Long is doing here. I am quite aware of the fact that every limited view, thank you. Well, I'm not gonna go through it then. The Enchiridion. Maybe let's just check this one out. Oh, this is an audiobook. I don't want to listen to it. I mean, I could, but I just choose not to. You know what? Let's go through the first one anyway. It is what it is, It just is what it is. Let's go to page 5 and see what it is all about. I actually really am enjoying this read. I'm not gonna lie. I really am enjoying this read. The fifth one. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things. Thus, death is nothing terrible, else it would have appeared so to Socrates. But the terror consists in our notion of death, that it is terrible. When therefore we are hindered or disturbed or grieved, let us never impute it to others, but to ourselves, that is, to our own views. It is the action of an uninstructed person to reproach others for his own misfortunes, of one entering upon instruction to reproach him, and one perfectly instructed to reproach neither others nor himself. The sixth one. Be not elated at any excellence not your own. If a horse should be elated and say, I am handsome, it might be endurable. But when you are elated and say, I have a handsome horse, you know that you are elated only on the merit of the horse. What then is your own? The use of the phenomena of existence? Being very sarcastic now, all of a sudden. So that when you are in harmony with nature in this respect, you will be elated with some reason. For you will be elated at some good of your own. It totally makes sense. Like, why would you try to benefit off of some things that are not yourself? Even though, one could also be then like, I'm not gonna be bragging about my talents because this is nothing that I've been working for, but rather for the things that I've been working for. The seventh. As in a voyage, when the ship is at anchor, if you go on shore to get water, you may amuse yourself with picking up a shellfish or a turtle in your way, but your thoughts ought to be bent toward the ship and perpetually attentive, lest the captain should call, and then you must leave all these things, that you may not have to be carried on board the vessel, bound like a sheep. Thus, likewise in life, if instead of a truffle or shellfish, such a thing as a wife or child be granted you, there is no objection. But if the captain calls, run to the ship, leave all these things, and never look behind. But if you are old, never go far from the ship, lest you should be missing when called for. I would actually really like to have some interpretations of what I'm reading here, because I think there's many ways to see something in it. There's actually enchiridion 7 interpretation. Maybe I'm actually finding something. Let's see. Enchiridion of Epictetus, chapter 7. What is Epictetus referring to in his Enchiridion, chapter 7? It's actually a Reddit poster. The first one is a Medium article. Let's see if it is a long one. If it is long. Oh, so it's... This one is interesting. If you're a sailor on board a ship that makes port, you may decide to go ashore to bring back water. Along the way, you may stop to collect shellfish or pick greens, but you always have to remember the ship and listen for the captain's signal to return. When he calls, you have to drop everything, otherwise you could be bound and thrown on board like the livestock. So it is in life. If instead of greens and shellfish you have taken on a wife and child, so much the better. But when the captain calls, you must be prepared to leave them behind and not give them another thought. If you are advanced in years, don't wander too far, or you won't make it back within time when the summons reaches you. For me, this is one of the hardest chapters of the Enchiridion to fully understand. The principal message is quite clear, but the implications of accepting the message are not. Essentially, Epictetus is telling us not to be too attached to the things we collect in life, whether it is green and shellfish or a wife and child, because inevitably we will have to leave it all behind one day when we die. A really interesting point to notice that in the first paragraph there is no mention of the possibility of the ship leaving without you. Instead, if you don't listen for the captain's return signal, you will be forced to get on the ship regardless. The ship is clearly representing death, and death leaves no one behind. One may be able to temporarily evade the captain's call, but the inevitable will always happen. On first reading, the advice to prepare to leave your wife and child behind seems almost cruel and heartless, but when it is viewed through the prism of life and death, it is actually quite sound advice. Note that Epictetus is not telling us to leave them behind, but to prepare just in case the captain calls because your ship is ready to sail. Considering the fact that whether you leave it or not is not your choice, preparing to lose everything is in fact the smart thing to do. The last sentence of this chapter is still somewhat cryptic to me. Obviously, you're statistically far more likely to die in the near future if you are advanced in years, quote unquote, than if you are a healthy 23-year-old. But I wonder if somebody who is old should live like they are old and expect to die reasonably soon. This could mean living a quiet life without taking too many new things on, without wandering too far. Is this the right way to live for an old person, or will this way of living just waste those few precious remaining years? It is a difficult balance. If you're 75, you could conceivably live another 25 plus years. If you are in good health, that is about the length of my life so far. It seems absurd to me to live 25 years of one's life not going too far because one is afraid that one is going to suddenly be gone. After all, we know it is going to happen anyway, so we might as well try and get the things we want to do done, and then if death interrupts us halfway through, then that is just the way dice rolled. Anyway, you won't be around to complain. Seneca expressed a great way in his letter on old age. If God is pleased to add another day, we should welcome it with glad hearts. That man is happiest and is secure in his own possession of himself, who can await the morrow without apprehension. When a man has said, "I have lived," every morning he arises, he receives a bonus. I think this mindset is great not just for the grey-haired among us, but even for the youngest stars amongst us. There is nothing in the world that guarantees you will make it to the end of the day, so it is not unwise to count our blessings every time we wake up. Think of the billions of people who once were and now are not. We are privileged, or quite privileged, to be alive right now. And with that being said, I'm going to end the episode. Bye-bye.